Adrian, glad you came. I'm sure. Selene folded her arms slightly. We need to stop doing this publicly. Doing what? This tension. I glanced between them. There's no tension on my side. That unsettled her badly. Because hatred still implies attachment. Indifference is colder. A journalist approached suddenly. Mrs. Laurent, can we get a photo with both you and Mr. Mercer? Before she answered, another reporter added, and maybe one with your husband too? Social media's been speculating lately. Julian's eyes flickered carefully toward Selene. Watching, waiting, testing her. Then she made the mistake. The company prefers to avoid personal gossip right now, she said smoothly. Meaning? She publicly acknowledged Julian and quietly erased me. The cameras captured everything. Perfect. I smiled faintly, then stepped aside willingly. The reporters looked awkward. Selene looked uncomfortable. Julian looked victorious. Only one of us understood what had actually happened. Because by tomorrow morning, those photos would destroy investor confidence. And the board would start asking why an emotionally compromised CEO was publicly entangled with a financially unstable consultant already under review. Exactly where I wanted them. As the cameras flashed around Selene and Julian, my phone buzzed once in my pocket. A message from Ethan. We found the recordings. I opened the attachment. Audio files. Private conversations. Julian discussing how to gain partial control over Laurent Beauty Group through emotional leverage. And one sentence made my entire body go still. Once Selene signs the merger authority, Adrian becomes irrelevant. Merger authority? What merger? Then another file loaded. A confidential acquisition agreement. Hidden, unauthorized, scheduled for approval in 72 hours. And buried deep in the contract was the real objective. Transfer of emergency executive power. Away from Selene. Away from me. Directly into Julian Mercer's control. I looked up slowly across the ballroom. Selene laughed softly at something Julian whispered in her ear while cameras adored them both. She had no idea at all, that the man she kept choosing over her husband was preparing to steal her entire empire from underneath her feet. The moment I discovered the merger agreement, I stopped trying to save my marriage. Until then, some pathetic part of me still believed Selene was merely blind, manipulated, emotionally reckless, but not malicious. That illusion died at 1:17 in the morning while I sat alone in my office replaying Julian's recordings through noise-canceling headphones. His voice was calm, confident, cruel. Selene signs whatever I place in front of her now, he laughed quietly in one recording. She trusts guilt more than logic. Then another voice asked, and her husband? Julian chuckled. Adrian's harmless. He's too controlled to fight dirty. I stared out at the city skyline while the recording ended. The irony almost amused me. People always think dangerous men are loud, aggressive, explosive, but the truly dangerous ones? They're patient enough to let everyone underestimate them first. At 7 a.m., Ethan arrived carrying black coffee and a tablet full of updated surveillance reports. Mercer met with Blackthorn Capital again, he said. That got my attention. Blackthorn wasn't a normal investment firm. They specialized in hostile acquisitions disguised as emergency restructures. Corporate predators in tailored suits. If they gain temporary authority over Laurent Beauty Group, Ethan continued, they'll strip the company apart within months. I nodded slowly. And Selene still hasn't realized? She thinks Mercer's protecting her from a board coup. Of course he framed it that way. Fear makes intelligent people irrational, especially when mixed with emotional dependency. I stood and adjusted my cufflinks. Prepare the Phoenix file. Ethan looked at me carefully. You sure? Yes. The Phoenix file was insurance. A private collection of evidence, hidden acquisitions, voting leverage, and silent partnerships I'd built quietly over 6 years. Not against Selene originally. Against uncertainty. I learned early in business that trust without protection was just expensive stupidity. Still, I never imagined I'd use it against my own wife. By noon, the Laurent executive tower buzzed with tension. Assistants whispered in hallways. Board members moved in tight, nervous groups. Stock prices had dipped another 4% overnight after the gala photos circulated online. Selene stood inside the conference room reviewing damage control strategies when I entered. She didn't greet me, didn't smile, didn't even fully look at me. Legal says we should issue a statement, she said coldly. About your relationship with Julian? Her jaw tightened. About investor confidence. Same thing. The room went quiet. 3 board members awkwardly avoided eye contact. Selene inhaled slowly through her nose. We are not doing this here. No, I agreed calmly. You already did it publicly. That stung. I saw it land. Julian entered seconds later, carrying coffee for her. Not for anyone else. Just her. Subtle ownership. Deliberate intimacy. The board noticed. One older director exchanged a very concerned glance with another. Good. Julian placed the coffee beside Selene gently. You haven't eaten. His voice carried soft concern, carefully designed for an audience. Disgustingly effective. Selene's shoulders relaxed slightly near him. Then Julian finally acknowledged me. Adrian. I nodded once. Debt collectors are getting impatient. His expression froze. Only briefly, but long enough. Nobody else in the room understood. Selene frowned immediately. What does that mean? I looked directly at Julian. Ask him. Silence. Julian recovered quickly. You've been digging through private matters again? No. Ivropolia souffle. Your creditors did that for me. The atmosphere changed instantly. Tiny. Subtle. But enough. Board members straightened slightly. One woman near the end of the table looked alarmed. Selene's voice sharpened. What creditors? Julian stepped closer to her before answering. Adrian's trying to intimidate you because he knows the board trusts me. Interesting choice of wording. Not denial. Deflection. Classic. Selene looked torn now. Good. Confusion was the first crack in manipulation. But then Julian touched her shoulder lightly. And there was again the recalibration, like watching someone manually redirect her emotions. He's angry, Julian said softly to her. That's all this is. Angry. Not correct. Not suspicious. Angry. Reduce logic into emotion, and suddenly evidence feels personal instead of factual. Beautiful manipulation. Truly, I almost respected it. Almost. The meeting ended with no resolution. But uncertainty had entered the room now. And uncertainty spreads faster than truth inside corporations. As executives filtered out, Selene stopped me near the elevator. What exactly are you implying about Julian? I pressed the elevator button calmly. I'm implying you should read documents before signing them. Her eyes narrowed. What documents? Interesting. So, she genuinely hadn't reviewed the merger authority. Either she trusted Julian blindly, or he deliberately kept her distracted emotionally. Both possibilities were catastrophic. The elevator doors opened. Before stepping inside, I looked at her quietly. You know the saddest part of all this? Her expression remained guarded. You still think betrayal has to look cruel to be real. Then the doors closed. That night Manhattan drowned beneath thunderstorm rain. I sat inside my penthouse office reviewing acquisition maps, while jazz played softly through hidden speakers. At 11:42 p.m., my private elevator opened unexpectedly. Selene. She stepped inside wearing a dark coat over silk pajamas, hair slightly damp from rain. For a second, she looked almost human again. Not the Ice Queen, not the CEO, just exhausted. I read the documents, she said quietly. I closed my laptop slowly, and her face looked pale beneath the city lights. There are transfer clauses I never approved. You knew. Yes. She stared at me like she wanted an emotional reaction. Anger. Vindication. Anything. Instead, I poured another glass of whiskey. Why didn't you warn me sooner? She whispered. That question nearly made me laugh. Sincerely? Yes. Because every time I tried warning you, you defended him. Her eyes dropped briefly. First guilt. Real guilt. Interesting. I thought you hated him because of me, she admitted quietly. I do dislike him because of you. That surprised her. But not for the reason you think. I walked toward the windows, overlooking the rain-covered skyline. You chose a man who feeds off emotional dependency because he made you feel needed. Meanwhile, you treated the person actually protecting your future like an inconvenience. Silence. Heavy silence. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. No, I agreed calmly. You just kept choosing yourself over and over until hurting me became unavoidable. That one landed deep. I saw in the way her breathing changed. For a moment, she looked dangerously close to tears. Then her phone buzzed. Julian. Again. Even now, her expression shifted immediately. Conflict. Confusion. Attachment. Addiction. It's incredible how emotionally intelligent women can still become prisoners to the right manipulator. You should answer, I said softly. She stared at the screen, then declined the call. Interesting. Very interesting. But not enough. Not yet. What happens now, she asked. I finally looked directly at her. That depends. On what? Whether you're finally ready to know who Julian Mercer actually is. The next evening, I took Selene somewhere unexpected. Not a boardroom. Not a restaurant. A private underground poker lounge hidden beneath an old luxury hotel downtown. Dark wood walls. Cigar smoke. Millionaires destroying themselves quietly. Selene looked uncomfortable immediately. What is this place? Education. We entered a private balcony suite overlooking the gambling floor below. Then I pointed toward table 7. Julian sat there laughing beside 2 older men. Stacks of chips surrounded him. Whiskey in hand. No sickness. No stress-induced weakness. No fragile victim performance. Just arrogance. Selene went completely still beside me. A blonde woman leaned into Julian's shoulder while he whispered something into her ear. Another woman touched his wrist possessively. He looked practiced, experienced, predatory, not broken. Selene's voice came out barely above a whisper. He told me he stopped gambling years ago. People rarely abandon habits that reward them. We watched silently as Julian lost nearly $200,000 in under 20 minutes, then won it back through suspicious dealer interactions. Selene slowly looked at me. You knew all this? Yes. Why didn't you expose him publicly? I held her gaze calmly. Because humiliation teaches nothing. Paternis do. Down below, Julian suddenly stood and walked toward a secluded hallway with one of the older investors. Ethan appeared beside us moments later. Room 19 is wired. Selene looked confused. I simply nodded. Then audio flowed quietly through the hidden speakers. Julian's voice echoed clearly. I need another extension. An older man laughed harshly. You already owe $12 million. I'm close to securing Laurent. You said that before. I have her completely under control now. Selene's face lost all color. Below us, Julian continued speaking. Once the emergency transfer activates, I'll liquidate enough assets to clear everything. And the husband? Julian laughed. He still thinks this is about love. That silence afterward felt endless. Selene stared downward at the man she had defended for months. The man she emotionally destroyed her marriage for. The man she trusted over everyone else. And finally, she saw him clearly. Not as her tragic first love. Not as the misunderstood man she needed to save. But exactly what he truly was. A parasite wearing charm like expensive cologne. Her voice cracked quietly. How long? Long enough. She looked at me slowly. Painfully. And for the first time in a very long time, she looked afraid of losing me. Not because I demanded it. Not because I fought for it. But because she finally understood how completely she had misjudged the only person in the room who never lied to her. Then suddenly Ethan's phone buzzed. He checked the screen. His expression darkened instantly. What? Ethan looked directly at me. Blackthorn moved early. A cold feeling settled through my chest. How early? They triggered the emergency board vote tonight. Selene's eyes widened. That's impossible. No, I said quietly. It's desperate. Ethan handed me the tablet. The emergency acquisition hearing had already started, and according to the filings, someone had just submitted Selene's digital authorization code, meaning one horrifying thing. Even after everything, even after discovering Julian's lies, someone inside Laurent Beauty Group was still helping him steal the company. And suddenly I realized the real betrayal had never been Julian. It was someone much closer. The drive to Laurent Tower took 11 minutes. Longest 11 minutes of Selene's life. She sat beside me in complete silence while rain hammered against the windshield and Manhattan lights blurred across the glass like fractured memories. For once, she wasn't defending Julian, wasn't arguing, wasn't trying to control the conversation. She just looked shattered. People think betrayal breaks you instantly. It doesn't. First, it humiliates you. Then it forces you to replay every warning you ignored, every red flag you romanticized, every person you pushed away while protecting the wrong one. Ethan sat in the front passenger seat, scanning updates on his tablet. The board meeting already started, he said. Blackthorn's trying to push temporary executive suspension before midnight. Selene finally spoke. My authorization code should have been impossible to access. Ich glänzte herkömmlich. Who handles your personal executive archive? She frowned slightly. There it was. Mara Bennett, Selene's chief assistant for 4 years. Quiet, efficient, invisible. The kind of person powerful executives stop noticing because they become part of the furniture. And invisible people hear everything. Selene immediately grabbed her phone. No answer. Again, straight to voicemail. Her face slowly drained of color. She wouldn't. She already did, I said quietly. The car stopped beneath Loron Tower's private underground entrance. When we entered the executive floor, tension hit like static electricity. Lawyers rushed between conference rooms. Assistants whispered nervously. Security teams monitored media leaks already exploding online. Emergency headlines flashed across every business network. Loron Beauty faces internal leadership crisis. Hostile restructure possible. CEO Selene Loron under board review. Selene stopped walking for half a second after seeing the screens. Not because of the headlines, because for the first time in her life, she looked powerless. Then the conference room doors opened, and Julian stepped out smiling. Not nervous, not desperate, smiling. He wore a charcoal suit with silver cufflinks I had once gifted Selene on our anniversary. Interesting choice. His eyes landed on her first, then me. Well, he said softly, this is dramatic. Selene stared at him like she no longer recognized his face. You used me. Julian sighed almost affectionately. Selene, please, don't reduce this to emotions. The irony nearly made Ethan laugh. She took one slow step toward him. All this time, you needed someone to depend on. Julian interrupted smoothly. I simply gave you direction. Her breathing became uneven. I trusted you. And you trusted Adrian too, Julian replied lightly. Look how cold he is. At least I made you feel needed. That sentence hung in the air dangerously. Because manipulative people always weaponize emotional truth. Yes, he used her. But he also understood her weaknesses frighteningly well. Selene looked like she wanted to slap him. Cry. Collapse. Instead, she whispered, You ruined everything. Julian tilted his head slightly. No, Selene. I revealed what was already broken. Then he looked at me. Your husband understands that part. I met his gaze calmly. You mistake emotional damage for intelligence. His smile thinned slightly. And you mistake silence for superiority. Not superiority, I replied softly. Discipline. That annoyed him. Good. For the first time since I met Julian Mercer, he looked emotionally unstable. The conference doors opened again. Mr. Vale, one attorney said urgently, the board's waiting. Inside the room sat 12 directors, legal counsel, investors, and Blackthorn representatives. At the far end of the table, Mara Bennett sat silently, avoiding Selene's eyes. There it was. Confirmation. Selene stared at her assistant in disbelief. Mara, the woman looked miserable. I'm sorry. Saw the... Selene whispered. Mara's eyes filled with tears instantly. He promised nobody would get hurt. Julian rolled his eyes slightly. Please don't become emotional now. I almost admired how casually cruel he was. Almost. The lead attorney cleared his throat. We're here regarding emergency executive restructuring authorization submitted under Ms. Lauren's credentials. One Blackthorn executive adjusted his glasses calmly. Given recent instability, our clients believe temporary leadership reassignment is necessary to protect shareholder interests. Translation? Steal the company while Selene's reputation looked vulnerable. Classic corporate predation. The attorney turned toward Selene. Did you knowingly authorize these transfers? Selene looked shattered now. No. Can you prove unauthorized access? Silence. Because technically, the credentials were hers. The signatures were hers. An emotional recklessness had already destroyed her credibility publicly. That was Julian's real genius. He didn't just manipulate finances. He manipulated perception. Then the attorney looked toward me. Mr. Vale, as co-founder and majority silent stakeholder, do you wish to comment? Every eye turned toward me. Julian leaned back confidently. He still thought he understood the board. He still thought this ended with negotiation. I stood slowly, then placed a black folder onto the table.
If the story made you feel something, leave a like. Not every story is meant to comfort you. Some are meant to follow you. And if this one stays with you, subscribe, because the next one goes even deeper.